Alfred the Arcanine, Leif and Lazuli's father, was released from jail. Due to his loyalty, he was allowed to keep his explorer job under the condition his rank would be revoked back to the lowest one. However, he quickly quit, wanting to leave it all behind. 2 weeks later, he was able to get a fire lookout job. When he got to his respective tower, he began to talk to one of the workers, Ashia the Ninetails. She asked Alfred why he took this job because it was usually taken by Pokemon who wanted to run away from their problems. Alfred was an exception, but he told his past to Ashia because she never heard about him. Ashia asked Alfred if he wanted to see his children again, but he was unsure what to answer because he believed that if his children were still alive, they would not forgive him for what he did. Meanwhile, the Eeveelution had been living in the treehouse for quite some time now. One day they planned to go to the beach, but Lazuli didn't want to go due to her type weakness. Speed, not wanting to leave her alone and in hopes Leaf would like him more, decided to stay behind with Lazuli. As usual, they didn't get along at first. Once they left their house to hang around in town, they turned friendlier towards each other. When they came back home, Lazuli talked to Speed about what happened to her multiple years ago. She couldn't keep a hold of her feelings as she spoke, so Speed comforted her. All Speed did for her during this day was make her begin to like him romantically. Multiple events occurred during the lapse of some months. Speed confessed to leave, but she rejected him. Speed and Sylvia recognized each other when they went to town with Lazuli one day. Sylvia gave up on her crush on Speed. Solar Flare realized that eating chocolate triggered the Category 3 Berserker effects. This was because eating chocolate strengthened the bond between him and the virus inside his body. Whenever this occurred, Solar Flare would end up communicating with it whenever he fell asleep, and each time the bond got strong enough, it would obtain some new traits, like the ability to speak a language that could be understood. Later, Pearl set up a vacation. She and the others, alongside their available family members, would go to a distant location named Alpha Island, through a boat, and spend time there for a week. On the day they left, everyone got to know their names. Thus, Black realized the Jolteon of the squad was Speed. Black got angry at Speed for hiding who he was once again, so both of them began to ignore each other. Axel quickly formed a bond with Sunshine. At Axel's request, it was decided that Axel would live with Pearl after the end of the vacation. Molly was unable to tell Speed and his siblings were her children. When everyone got to the island, it didn't take long before Lazuli found an unconscious female Glaceon near the shore. When she woke up, she didn't recognize the place she was in. She said the last thing she remembered was entering a magna gate, and later revealed her name, Cece. Because she had no idea where she was and her memory was foggy, she stayed with the squad for the meantime. The group of Eeveelutions soon got to a beach house they would be in for the week. That night, Solar Flare and Leaf discussed about their families. This talk made Solar Flare cry, but it only affected his left eye, which had obtained its berserk look shortly after he began to tear up. Due to the high bond level, Solar Flare was able to control himself. Leaf was able to notice the change in Solar Flare's eye and asked him about it, the question that forced him to turn his eye back to normal to not freak her out. The topic remained regardless, but ended after both of them began to hope nothing wrong would come out of it. The next day, Solar Flare talked to the being he encountered in his dreams again. This time, half of its body obtained the same colors of an Eevee, and its speech became more clear and complex, a result of the bond turning stronger. Solar Flare named it Fluffy after knowing it didn't have a name. Fluffy explained to him multiple aspects of its being. It was called an amorphinism, which usually copy the form of the Pokemon they bonded with, but oddly, with the exception of Fluffy, who remained as an Eevee even after Solar Flare evolved. It also told that the higher bond level is, the more alive it would become. After this, it explained that it, as well as other morphinisms, were created by the hatred of a Pokemon named Father and a mythical mon named God. The purpose of the Amorphinisms was to kill any Pokemon they could find in order to carry on Father's hatred. Despite this knowledge, they do not know the identity of the Father and God. Thanks to the strength of the bond, Fluffy was able to think about its purpose and came to the conclusion it was pointless, which explains why Solar Flare no longer tries to kill anybody when it's under the Berserker effects. That morning, Pearl asked Sylvia to talk to Black about how he felt about her because she was unable to ask him personally. Sylvia didn't want to hang out with him today, but devised a plan as an alternative. She revealed she brought Mana in her bag. Sylvia requested Mana to use Soul Swap on her and Pearl, so Pearl could use Sylvia's body to talk to Black. Mana agreed, making Sylvia and Pearl swap bodies, but with the drawback of their eye color changing to a bright blue. However, they didn't worry about it because Sylvia's eyes already had a similar color. Soon, Pearl asked Black to come with her, and so did Sylvia with Speed. They were able to fool everyone they encountered, despite not trying to match their respective personalities. It took some time, but Pearl eventually asked Black the question she was meaning to ask. He told that despite all things she did to get his attention, he still cared dearly for her. After this, Pearl's cover-up was put in danger due to Black noticing she was behaving like herself instead of Sylvia. But Pearl told she was just mimicking herself, an excuse that worked. Black's kindness during this talk made Pearl heavily regret everything she had done to him, and soon began to cry because of it. Black quickly comforted her, but she began to feel bad again soon after. Meanwhile, Sylvia and Speed were hanging out. By this point, Speed had also noticed Sylvia was acting nothing like the Pokemon whose body she borrowed. Speed noticed the change in eye color after they both went to the park. He had a previous knowledge of the effects of Soul Swap and the fact Sylvia was friends with Mana. He nearly kissed her to confirm his suspicion, and Sylvia's heavy blush said more than enough. A little bit after the secret was out, Speed apologized for leaving town without telling Sylvia personally, and for constantly trying to get away from her whenever she appeared. Sylvia told him he didn't need to apologize because she was at fault as well due to trying to force him into a relationship. The topic ended with no hard feelings. Sylvia then told Speed about Lazuli's crush on him, but he decided to do nothing about it. Once the four Pokemon got back to the house, Mana changed Pearl and Sylvia's bodies back. Shortly after that event, Mana checked on Chill, who they had found a few hours ago. Chill had been following Speed this whole time because they decided to do so, but without trying to affect his life, the reason why he's following him in secret. Man asked Chill if they will tell Speed about it now, but Chill refused. Elsewhere, Frost or Shard and Pompon planned to go to Alpha City, located on the same island all the other Eeveelution were currently on. Shard had been exploring the continent to find clues to who he was, but was not having any luck. He had explored most places by now, but there still were some locations he hadn't gone to yet, one of them being Sunnytown, which had recently been renamed to Plasma Town. The next day, Leaf gave Solar Flare some chocolate because she knew he liked it. As usual, Solar Flare's left eye changed its look again, but Leaf noticed as well. This made Solar Flare tell her that the reason why the eye changes had to do with Fluffy, who he then explained. Leaf believed what he said despite the ludicrousy of his statements. Later, both of them checked on Molly. Molly told Solar Flare that Speed reminded him of her husband. The three of them kept talking until Bolt came in, because Bolt used to be an explorer in Terra Town, where Leaf's original home was located. Leaf asked him if he knew Alfred, who was an explorer. He said he did, and told her about what Alfred did shortly after he separated from her. Bolt asked why she wanted to know so much about Alfred, and she only said her mother knew him, leaving out the fact that he was her father. Everything Bolt had said depressed the Leafeon, something Solar Flare easily noticed. When Leaf left, Solar Flare asked Bolt if he could contact Alfred after the vacation in order to meet him. Bolt agreed to do it, but didn't know if Alfred would be available that day.